Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Iran's Ayatollah has reportedly ordered a direct Iranian attack on the Jewish state. His threat comes in retaliation for the killing of a top Hamas leader on Iranian soil.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is warning that anyone who strikes Israel, quote, will exact a heavy price from any aggression on any front. Chris Mitchell reports on the growing concerns the conflict will escalate into a wider war.
On Wednesday, the funeral procession of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh made its way through the streets of Tehran. While Israel has not claimed responsibility for his death, the New York Times reports Iran's Ayatollah Khamenei has ordered a direct strike on Israel in retaliation for the attack on Iranian soil. A senior Hamas leader said Haniyeh's death affects ongoing negotiations between the terror group and the Jewish state.
There is no point in talking about ceasefire negotiations amid bloodshed and assassinations.
The IDF also confirmed the death of Mohammed Deif, Hamas's #2 leader in Gaza, on July 13th. In an address to the nation Wednesday night, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel is prepared for any retaliation.
There are challenging days ahead of us. Since the attack in Beirut, threats have been heard from all sides. We are prepared for any scenario and will stand united and determined against any threat. Israel will exact a heavy price from any aggression against us on any front.
He emphasized Iran is the power behind all the threats.
Since the beginning of the war, I have conveyed that we are in a struggle against Iran's axis of evil. This is a war of existence against a stranglehold of terrorist armies and missiles that Iran wants to tighten around our necks.
U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said America will stand by Israel in the event of an attack.
If Israel is attacked, we certainly will help defend Israel. You saw us do that in April. You can expect to see us do that again.
Middle East expert Avi Melamed expects a calculated retaliation by Iran.
It will be, on the one hand, powerful and send a message, but on the other hand, will be very careful not to result in a dynamic that will actually result in an all-out war.
Melamed adds Israel is sending a message with these twin strikes.
You could read the Israeli message to Iran as one that says we are willing, able, and ready to be engaged in a whole-out war, which is not something that I think the Iranian regime actually is interested in at this conjunction, at this time.
These latest crises come as Israel marks the 300th day since the October 7th attack. On the front page of the Jerusalem Post, it reads in English and Hebrew, "Our hope is not yet lost." Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, let's pray that we can pray for peace and have hope that peace can result from this. But as long as the regime of Iran stays in power, as long as they're dedicated to this ideology of hate that they call it the Zionist entity. They don't even recognize Israel as a legitimate state. They want to wipe Israel off the map. They've said it for decades, and let us please really start believing it. Whether it's rocket attacks from Hezbollah, the October 7th massacre from Hamas in Gaza, all the provocations, all of it goes back to Iran, and it goes back to this ideology. As long as that stays in place, we're not going to see peace. In other news, the top suspect in the September 11th attacks will plead guilty to the murder of nearly 3,000 people. John Jessup has more on that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
That's right, Gordon. The Defense Department has released news of the plea deal. The Pentagon on Wednesday saying Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and 2 others will plead guilty to all charges, including the murder of 2,976 people. The deal reportedly in exchange for life in prison. Some relatives of the victims are unhappy with the news, saying they deserve to see the men put on trial. The prosecution's case held up by legal challenges and other delays for more than 16 years. Well, the United States is unprepared for the most serious security threats it's faced since World War II. That's the warning defense experts delivered to a Senate committee this week. CBN's Dale Hurd reports.
The heads of the Commission on the National Defense Strategy told the Senate Armed Services Committee that the United States is nowhere near prepared for the dangerous multi-threat environment it's facing.
The public has no idea how great the threats are.
Commission Chairman Representative Jane Harman and Vice Chair Ambassador Eric Edelman issued a dire warning to the committee Tuesday.
The homeland, if there's a conflict, is not going to be a sanctuary anymore, and the first attacks will likely be in the cyber domain, and they will be incredibly disabling.
The public is essentially clueless about the massive cyber attacks that could be launched any day by our adversaries, not just nation states, but rogue actors as well.
The report warns a cyber war with China or Russia would be devastating. America's critical infrastructure would come under attack, possibly cutting off power, water, transportation, and financial systems, and shutting down the supply chain. The report states major war would affect the life of every American in ways we can only begin to imagine. The report echoes a warning FBI Director Christopher Wray gave Congress.
China's hackers are positioning on American infrastructure in preparation to wreak havoc and cause real-world harm to American citizens and communities if and when China decides the time has come to strike.
One of the things we might anticipate, for example, is if China decides to annex Taiwan or whatever euphemism they might use, they might engage in a major cyber attack here first, for which we are underprepared.
The commission found the U.S. defense sector lacking in almost every area, including integrated weapons technology platforms and software. With recruitment levels for all branches lagging, America needs a larger fighting force, and the hearing discussed lowering physical standards for recruits and even instituting a draft.
We found that the joint force is at the breaking point of maintaining readiness today. Adding more burden without adding resources to rebuild readiness will cause it to break.
And with so many cyber threats, the commission also said the Pentagon must find a way to somehow lure the best and brightest computer minds away from Silicon Valley and into national service. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Dale. Well, here at home, a battle brewing over the right of churches to help homeless ministries. Facing legal challenges from local authorities, they're finding sanctuary and a federal law that protects freedom of worship. CBN's Brady Carter explains.
Local authorities are threatening churches and nonprofits with fines and other legal action, accusing them of violating zoning laws and local ordinances by housing and feeding homeless people.
About 6 years ago, we started using trailers on the backside of our property, 2 trailers on the backside of our property to help those that are struggling in our community.
For several years, the Rock Church in Castle Rock, Colorado provided shelter to people experiencing homelessness in an RV and trailer behind the church. The church's ministries also include food distribution, job training, financial assistance, and other efforts to help them transition into long-term solutions. However, at least one neighbor isn't comfortable with the location of the temporary shelters.
Without any access to basic locations of groceries, work, I don't feel like this is the right place for it.
Between 2021 and 2023, the town ordered the church to cease its ministry. Recently, a judge ordered the ministry could continue housing people in their RVs while the case is heard in the courts.
But it's really difficult for pastors to not only be under these constant threats by the government, have to talk to attorneys in an area that they don't really know that much about, but then also have to continue to care for the desperate ministries around them.
Jeremy Dice, an attorney with First Liberty, is representing the church in its lawsuit against the town for violating the right to practice religion.
This is why we filed a lawsuit because of our religious freedom to continue to do what we believe we're called to do.
It's not only religious freedom at stake. For those being helped, it could mean the difference between staying on the streets or getting a chance at starting a new life.
If it wasn't for this trailer and this church, I feel I would have been in the same position because I wouldn't have left that element that I needed to get away from.
Similar legal battles are being fought across the country. In Byron Center, Ohio, First Liberty is representing Pastor Chris Avell of Dad's Place, who faced nearly 24 criminal charges for housing the homeless. Those charges have since dropped. And in California, a federal judge gave Micah's Way a favorable ruling protecting their outreach efforts.
All of them are united under one theme, that the towns and the cities simply don't want that religious ministry occurring in their neck of the woods and want to push them to the margins of their community, if not shut them down altogether.
Jeremy says the saving grace is a federal law called the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act, which protects religious institutions from discriminatory zoning laws and other land use regulations that are used to restrict religious exercise.
Rather than punishing these pastors, cities should be encouraging them and praising them for their good efforts.
Instead, Jeremy sees this struggle becoming more commonplace. The outcome of these legal battles will have significant implications for religious freedom and community outreach nationwide. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Gordon, it's hard to comprehend how there's a conflict with the call to care for the least of these.
Well, there is no conflict. If you're a Christian, you're under commandment to care for those in need. This is part of what it means to be a Christian. Yes, we believe in Jesus. Yes, we love God with all of our heart. Yes, we love our neighbor as ourselves. And when we see neighbors in need, we don't just say, may you be warmed and filled and go on your way. We have to do it very tangibly, and we have to let our work show what we are all about. And that is just fundamental to the Christian faith. Churches should be known as places of refuge. They have been known for that for centuries. When you look at the history of the church, all of the hospitals grew out of church outreaches. All of the lodgings grew out of church outreaches to help weary travelers. All of these things are part of Christian tradition and should be upheld. Let me give you a little legal history. It's curious that this case is out of Colorado, because Colorado passed some very restrictive zoning laws when the house church movement was taking off. And so on Sunday morning, neighborhoods would find, well, there's a whole lot of traffic to a particular house or houses in our neighborhood, and we don't like that because people were coming to homes to have church services. So that's where these zoning restrictions first started. In a curious twist of history, the government of China watched what was going on in Colorado, used the same tactic to shut down house churches in China, which is, it just is mind-boggling to me that they would learn from our laws how to restrict religious exercise in China. That's why we have that federal law about land use, that if it's for religious purposes, then there can't be zoning restrictions on it. We all need to come together here to say, we believe in the free exercise. Congress shall make no law respecting, number one, the established. There's no established church of the United States of America. We won't have that. Or prohibit the free exercise. So let us go out and exercise our Christian faith, do it very tangibly, and most importantly, take care of the least of these, the ones who are neglected, marginalized. Let's do that, and let's do that in the name of Christ.